We've all been there. You've just been watching your favorite self-help YouTuber and they've just given you advice and you've decided that you're going to implement it. 2 weeks later, this advice is no longer serving you and you've actually just forgotten about it. It's no longer helping you in the way that you desired it to or in the way that you foresaw it helping you. And now you're sitting here with the same problem that you had at the start, except you wasted time and effort on a solution that didn't work. A lot of self-help advice and productivity advice is prescriptive. You should do this, you shouldn't do this. And the problem with this type of advice is it's very person specific and it's very situation specific. And we want to avoid applying rules to every situation without actually thinking about whether this is the best thing to apply to that particular situation. In a previous video, I spoke about why rules should be broken. And I basically said that you have to understand the purpose of the rule in the first place, why it's there, what it's aiming to achieve. And so rules are set in place with desired outcomes in mind. And sometimes it happens that the rules work against themselves, against their own desired outcomes. And this is also true for self-help advice, these prescriptive guidelines that you absolutely must follow. The fact of the matter is that you absolutely do not need to follow them. And think about people in this world like Elon Musk or generally extremely productive individuals. Do you seriously think that they have gone through studying all of this productivity advice and implement Pomodoro techniques and the 2-minute principle and 80-20 principle and this and that? I'm telling you, they definitely don't. Parkinson's law. You can go on, name as many things as you want. They don't apply these things to their lives in a prescriptive type of way. Instead, they have an idea about what they want, they understand the world, and they apply themselves in that given situation. They don't blindly follow prescriptive rules. And they shouldn't blindly follow prescriptive rules. And if these people can reach peak productivity without these prescriptive rules, so can you. But you need something else in place of it. And this is the alternative thinking that I have come across, that I have found to be extremely useful and extremely valuable, that can replace this rabbit hole digging down productivity YouTube channels and getting in this whole mindset of being a self-help guru only to find out that none of it actually works, and at the end of the day you just have to put in the effort and truly care about what you're doing. That's all it really boils down to. But you've gone down this path. Okay, so George, what the hell is the solution? What is this alternative form of thinking that you're proposing? Well, the solution is to train your intuition to make decisions on the fly more effectively. So to do this, you have to start relying on your intuition more so that you can train your intuition. And in order to rely on it more, you have to start trusting it. And in order to trust it more, it has to give you reasons to trust it, which means it should be good, which means it's a vicious cycle there. And so we never actually end up going into it, and we never actually end up pursuing this thing of benefiting, of enhancing our intuition, our approach, our natural instincts towards what needs to be done, what should be done. So the thing that I'm trying to talk about with this intuition idea is, think about, just to make it concrete and clear, think about a baby and a grown adult in a restaurant. If this grown adult were to burst out into a wailing howl because they felt itchy, this person would be shunned, and rightfully so. But we don't place that same expectation on the baby. Now, the baby hasn't had the training, hasn't had their mind trained, their intuition trained to know that that type of behavior is unacceptable. They don't have the ability to control themselves, but adults do, because they have had this exposure to life, and so it comes known eventually that this is something that's unacceptable. And so if this adult, were to wail and howl in the restaurant because they were itchy, this would be a severe problem. And I'm sure we can all agree that this person who's itchy doesn't have to think about it. They don't have to consciously decide whether or not to howl in the restaurant. This is something that's intuitive to them. They just know it instinctively to be the right thing to do. So this is the type of thing that I'm trying to propose here in our lives. It's the instinctive approach to what needs to be done, what ought to be done, how we ought to tackle the things that confront us, how we ought to approach our challenges, and how we ought to respond to opportunities. And in order to do this in the most effective way, we need to apply the most tailored solution to that specific problem. Now, the most tailored solution to that specific problem, you might think, George, this has an immense cost to rationalize everything, to explain all the variables that are at play, and to understand all the uncertainty, and amidst this uncertainty, make the decision that has the best possible expected result with the minimum variance. How are we going to do that? That requires so much thinking. And yes, you're right, it would require a lot of thinking if you were to approach this rationally, but that's not what I'm proposing. What I'm proposing is that you train your mind on the world and you develop an intuitive understanding about the nature of reality and about how the world works, and about what you truly desire and what's important to you and what should be important to you. And then culminating all of this together, a whole lot of data points, a whole lot of points of information. Your subconscious mind, your intuitive, quick thinking mind, instead of the deliberate thinking mind, can make a decision that is more holistically evaluated, so that you can make the decision that's best for this particular scenario. Your subconscious mind, your intuitive mind, can make decisions based on a large amount of information much better than your deliberate mind can, because your deliberate, slow thinking mind, rational mind, has to process every point of information individually. But we can't feasibly do that in a world with so much uncertainty. And so we ought to develop our intuition. And you might say to me, George, there is no way I can develop my intuition to the extent that I don't have to think about things so hard and still make correct decisions. And to that I say, yes, you can. Stop being a fool. Stop trying to take the easy way out. You need to train this thing. And here's why. We tend to dramatically underestimate the extents of proficiency in all aspects of our lives. So think about it like this. This is something I often talk about, I think about a lot. You might think that you've developed a certain level of proficiency in maths. Let's say if you studied for 200 hours, 1,000 hours, you think, I'm pretty decent at maths now. But if you just did it based off that 1,000 hours of learning, you would actually be a very shitty mathematician. These mathematicians that are truly at the frontier are PhD students, are people who have professorships, who've been doing maths their entire lives, not even tens of thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands, I don't know if that's realistic, but many hours, more than 10,000 hours of maths practice, and that's what it takes. And that is competence, not this 1,000 hour endeavor. And we think that we're gaining quite a lot of competence here in these first 1,000 hours, but you really are so far from being at the end of it, at the frontier. You're so far from that. And the same goes for our intuition. Yes, we've developed this basic intuition to know that we ought not to howl in a restaurant when we're itchy as an adult. Of course we know that, but that's the very basics. That's the first 1,000 hours. We need to develop the intuition. We need to develop this intuition such that we can approach problems that are more complicated with more certainty. This is the type of thing that CEOs do, the type of thing that executives do in companies. They don't always have all the information at hand. They seek to make the best informed decisions, and this is not a problem. I'm not advocating against rational decisions, but I'm just saying that these CEOs make a lot of decisions based on their feel for things, how they feel this thing's going to turn out. They have gut feelings, and this gut feeling, sixth sense, is not rooted in some esoterical thing. It's actually rooted in reality, because it's a thought process that is upwelling from our subconscious, that's compelling us towards a certain direction. And they have trained their minds on so much information that they can make the best decisions without having to evaluate all the information at hand in a deliberate, conscious, slow, rational way. This is what I am proposing we do for our lives. Now, you know that the things that drive your success is the amount of effort you put in, the quality of that effort. Those are the things that drive your success. And the things that drive the amount of effort you put in and the quality of the effort is how much you care. And so if you care a lot, and if you have a extremely sophisticated worldview and view of this particular thing that you're trying to excel in, then you can make the best decisions possible, because you're directed on a clear path, and you can take into account all the information that's available to you on conscious and subconscious levels, and make this decision quickly, quickly and efficiently and effectively, correctly. Sometimes the quick thinking, intuitive decision is more effective than the rational decision, because this rational decision is a slower decision that, in order to take into account all the information at hand, it takes an extremely long time, and we still can't be sure that we've done it effectively. And so sometimes the gut feeling, the gut instinct is a better decision. So this is what I'm going for. I'm trying to say, don't follow these principles, these self-help advice, all these things in your life as prescriptive measures. Don't follow them blindly as, I will have a routine that looks like this. I will follow the Pomodoro technique to study between these hours of the day. I will do this in the gym in order to maximize muscle growth. I will sleep in this particular way. This is all good and well in theory, but in practice, life doesn't work in this prescriptive way, and there are way more variables at play. So I'd like to make an analogy to clarify what I'm trying to say. So think of machine learning and a closed form mathematical model or deterministic model. Now, a machine learning model trains on a lot of data. Supervised learning, unsupervised. We have a lot of data that's available to us. And with this data, we are able then to make the best predictions possible if we are then given another data point on those particular variables that we've trained our model on. Okay? And now, this model, based on past experience, a significant amount of data, gives us the best solution that we can make. Okay, in a quick way. Now, the alternative approach is to have a closed form model, a deterministic model. And in this mathematical model, we are defining a variable, and when this variable takes on certain values, or set of variables, when this set of variables takes on certain values, my model will perform operations on those variables in a deterministic manner and output a deterministic result. And that is the optimal result according to our mathematical model. Now, these are like our prescriptive pieces of advice, where we think we must act in this particular way. We apply the operations to our life and it spits out the result. It's much like this closed form mathematical model. They have their place, but they don't have their place in a world of uncertainty. Okay, and so we then apply this thinking, and we end up at a solution that hasn't taken into account everything, that was difficult to take into account everything, and where we don't actually know whether the solution is the best solution or not, and it turns out in the end to not be the best solution. Whereas if we had have used the machine learning approach, we can end up at better results. Now, I'm not trying to imply that machine learning models are better than deterministic closed form mathematical formulae. I'm not trying to imply that. They each have their place, and in fact you should go for the mathematical formula before you try and train a machine learning model, if you can define a mathematical formula simply and correctly that applies to almost all circumstances. But if not, then we go for this machine learning model. And that's what I'm saying here. We can apply these rules, but when they don't apply across the board blanketly, which most rules don't, then we should look towards this machine learning type approach, this intuitive approach, where we understand the nature of the world. We train our machine learning models, we train our minds, our intuition on the world, and we understand what we want from the world, and we couple this, we unite these two things, what we're desiring, and we unite the information that we have, and then we make this intuitive decision. And these decisions often guide us in the best possible ways and result in better solutions. So I'm proposing that you have an open mind, that you don't marry systems, that you don't marry approaches, that you don't blindly follow advice, that you have a more open-minded, flexible, creative approach to life that takes into account all these different scenarios, and trust your gut more. Develop the sixth sense. It is something that can be developed, and it is something that you should aim to develop, because in the long term, the biggest decisions that you'll make in life cannot take into account everything. You can try your best, you can gain as much information, but at the end of the day, you are going to have to rely on a lot of other different things. And if we want to make the best decisions in our day-to-day lives as well, we need to apply specific solutions to whatever problems we're facing. And the specific solutions are always best guided by principles. Principles that underpin the nature of reality. We must understand the world, and principles that we adopt, our value system, what we value in this world, what we are directed towards, what we want. And then through uniting all of this, we can then go and make the best particular decision in that scenario in an efficient, effective, clean way, without going through this clunky process of applying a rule to a scenario when the rule just does not fit. Anyways, that's everything that I wanted to say. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe. I'll be posting more videos soon.